let us skip the introductions, because I am not here to be introduced. I am here to tell you that without a strong hand crushing your instincts, you would kill your neighbor by Tuesday.
And I am here to tell you that is the most successful piece of propaganda in the history of political thought, and it is wrong.
My name is Thomas Hobbes. I wrote during a civil war that tore England apart, a war where I watched my own country execute its king in the street. I fled to Paris in fear for my life, and from exile I wrote a book called Leviathan, and I stand by every page.
My name is John Locke. I wrote a generation later, after England found a quieter way to remove a king, the glorious revolution of 1688, and I fled to Holland myself for a few years when my own politics got dangerous. I read Hobbes carefully. I think he got the diagnosis half right, and the prescription catastrophically wrong.
Half right is generous of you. Let me lay out the whole case, because you are new to this argument, and you deserve the full weight of it before he starts poking holes. Picture human beings with no government at all. No police. No courts. No shared authority above any individual. I call this the state of nature, and I do not romanticize it for 1 second. In that condition, every person is roughly equal in their ability to kill every other person, whether by strength, by cunning, or by ganging up while you sleep. And because we are equal in that terrifying way, we are all permanently afraid of each other.
Go on, say the famous line. You know you want to.
Fine. In that condition, there is no industry, because the fruit of it is uncertain. No agriculture, no navigation, no commerce, no arts, no letters, no society, and worst of all, continual fear and danger of violent death. And the life of man, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. That is not poetry. That is a description of what happens the instant legitimate authority disappears, which I watched happen in my own country in real time.
And that is exactly where I want to push back first, because you are describing your own civil war and calling it human nature. England in the 1640s was not a lawless void. It was a country with too many competing authorities, a king, a parliament, an army, all claiming legitimate power at once. That is not the absence of order. That is a collision of orders.
Call it what you like. My conclusion is the same either way. Human beings need one final, undivided authority, or the competition for power tears everything apart. So here is my solution, and I want you to really sit with how radical it was for its time. Individuals give up their right to govern themselves and hand it entirely to a sovereign, one supreme ruler or ruling body, in exchange for protection. I called this figure the Leviathan, after the sea monster in the book of Job, because the state should be terrifying to anyone who threatens the peace. And critically, this sovereign's authority is absolute. You do not get to rebel just because you dislike a particular law. The moment you allow exceptions, you are back in the war of all against all.
There it is. That is the sentence I have spent my whole career arguing against. You take a real problem, the danger of chaos, and you offer a cure that can be just as dangerous as the disease, a ruler with no check on him whatsoever.
Better one dangerous sovereign than 10,000 dangerous neighbors.
Or better a sovereign whose power is limited by consent and by law, so it never gets the chance to become dangerous in the first place. Let me tell you where I start, because it is not where you start. I agree the state of nature has no government, but I do not think it is automatically a war zone. I think it is governed by a natural law that reason itself can discover, that no one ought to harm another in their life, health, liberty, or possessions. Most people, most of the time, actually follow that. The state of nature is workable. It is just insecure.
Insecure is doing an enormous amount of work in that sentence.
It is doing exactly the right amount of work. Insecure means there is no judge to settle disputes fairly, no impartial referee, and no guaranteed way to punish someone who does break the law of nature. So people are not living in constant terror in my version, they are living with a nagging, reasonable anxiety, and that anxiety is what eventually drives them to form a government. But listen closely, because this is the hinge everything turns on. They do not hand over everything, forever unconditionally, the way your subjects do. They form a government by consent for a specific and limited purpose, to protect what I call their property, meaning their life, their liberty, and their estate.
And how, precisely, does a person acquire this property you are so fond of, before any government exists to grant it to them?
Through labor. This is one of the ideas I am proudest of. Nature gives the world to humanity in common, the forests, the rivers, the open land. But when a person takes something out of that common stock and mixes their own labor with it, clears the field, picks the apple, builds the fence, that labor is unquestionably their own, and so the thing it is joined to becomes their own too. Property is not a gift from a sovereign. It exists before government, and government's job is to protect it, not to invent it.
A charming theory for a man who never had to defend a harvest from a starving army.
I lived through a revolution too, Thomas. I simply came out the other side believing the fix was consent and limits, not submission and silence.
Then let me leave listeners with the sharpest version of my argument before you get the rest of the hour to dismantle it. Every day, in workplaces everywhere, people run a small experiment that proves my point. Put a group of talented people on a project with absolutely no assigned leader, no one with final say, everyone equally empowered to veto everyone else. Watch how fast that turns into quiet warfare, competing factions, nothing shipped, deadlines missed while everyone waits for someone else to blink. That leaderless group is my state of nature in miniature. It does not need a suggestion box. It needs someone with the actual authority to make the final call and end the argument.
And I will grant you that failure mode is real, I have seen it myself. But you are conveniently ignoring the other failure mode. The team with an overbearing manager who hoards every decision, punishes dissent, and cannot be questioned even when he is obviously wrong. That team does not descend into chaos. It descends into fear, stagnation, and eventually, people quietly sabotaging a leader they cannot legally remove. Tyranny is not a solution to disorder. It is just disorder wearing a uniform.
We will let the audience sit with both failure modes for a moment, because honestly, neither of us can pretend the other one is imaginary. I will say this much for the record, since I doubt he will grant it to me directly. My argument has never fully gone away. Every time a modern government declares a state of emergency, when a pandemic forces cities into lockdown, when a legislature grants a leader sweeping temporary powers to move fast and save lives, that is my logic running quietly underneath the decision, whether the officials making it have ever read a page of Leviathan or not. In a genuine crisis, people quietly agree, at least for a while, that unified fast authority beats slow, divided debate.
And every single time one of those emergency powers gets renewed a little too easily, or kept a little too long after the emergency has passed, that is where my argument comes roaring back in. The 21st century is still litigating this exact fight in real time, worldwide, right now. Arguments over how much power a government should hold on to during a health crisis, a security crisis, or a financial one, and how hard it should be to ever get that power back. Every serious debate about emergency, powers versus civil liberties happening today is, underneath the modern language, a Hobbes and Locke argument wearing a different coat.
So there is the true shape of the fight. Order first or liberty first? I say order first, because liberty without order is a corpse's liberty. Stay with us, because in part 2 he gets the floor, and he is going to try to build an entire theory of legitimate rebellion out of the very fear I just described.
I am going to do exactly that, and I am going to enjoy it.